Hello, most valued viewer, and welcome back. This is the development log for SynthVR. And at this point in time, SynthVR has been out for about a month in public alpha, and you can find the links to download it and try it. For Oculus Quest or Oculus Rift, the links are in the description of this video, so please check it out. And I gotta say, having been in public alpha, I have not regretted it because the feedback has been awesome, both from the synthesizer community, but also from other people that have joined on the Discord server, which has been extremely helpful and very uplifting to talk to people about VR, synthesizers and music in VR. And just a quick sort of plug for the Discord server. Here we have it, and we have a lot of great discussions in here. We have people making other sort of VR synth related things. We have people from academia who know all about this stuff that are also working on these things. We have different sort of users that are trying it out and giving their feedback. Here's a video of someone trying it. We do some polls, and I do try to get some feedback directly from the people in here on how to sort of progress. So overall, this place is really awesome, and I hope you'll come join the conversation, because it's a very fun place to be. Based on the feedback that I got, a couple of things have been done. So one of the first things that people asked for is PC VR support. Like, I have an Oculus Rift, can I play it? And I'm happy to say that Oculus Rift is now supported. OpenVR not yet, but it is on the roadmap. Also a lot of usability improvements. So one of the big things that people asked for after the initial release was, I want to be able to move the modules around freely. I kind of accidentally end up grabbing the modules when I wanted to grab dials or faders or different things. And also when I grab modules, the connections are sort of disconnected. And why is that? And so based on that, I've sort of updated SynthVR in such a way where modules are now a lot more free, and you can sort of arrange your synthesizer space in a much more sort of free-form way, also using the space around you. And you're going to see that in a demo in a second. Also, people have come with really cool sort of module ideas. So some people have asked for performance modules. So like, couldn't you make a module that's like a theremin, or like a keyboard, or some sort of thing that emulates like Imogen Heap's glove? Based on this feedback, version 0.3 is now out, and I was thinking, let's do a demo of that and see what's new. So I'm gonna get my Oculus Quest. Very convenient. All right, here we are. A couple of things have changed. You now see there's these sort of controller graphics. So I can see these controllers now. They sort of map onto my Oculus Touch controllers, and I have these sort of this sort of little ball of energy at the end that indicates the sort of interaction point. I can teleport like could before. Now it's just with a single button press, and when I release, I get teleported, and that works quite well. I also can now go in, and I can, for example, pick, say, a mixer. So this is a new module, and a thing you'll notice is that now, like when I got close to a module, I'm just going to actually move a little further back here. There we go. When I get close to a module, I get this little handle here. You can see, like when I move close, it sort of appears. So when I'm sort of looking at my rack, and let's maybe put a couple more things in here. When I'm looking at my rack, I'm not really seeing these handles. But when I do want to arrange my rack somehow, let's say I want, I think my output should be over there. That makes sort of sense to me, and I think my mixer should be next to it. I'm going to connect the mixer to that output, and I want the oscillators here. Well, then it's a little bit easier to manage. And then when I'm like doing stuff here, right? I'm not accidentally sort of grabbing the module and doing something with it. So now it's more of an explicit action that I'm going up here, and I see this little handle, and I grab it, and I can now move the thing around, and I can arrange it into my rack. All right. Another thing you'll notice, and I'm just gonna hook a couple of things up here. Let's see this. Let's say that was what I wanted to do. There we go, and I'm just going to do some panning too. All right, and I can control the mixer. So now if I move stuff around, you will see that the connections are following it as well. And what some people prefer to do, and let's see if I can just position myself for that, is just say, well, actually, I don't really care about the rack. I just want to kind of position it like this or something, you know. Maybe this is what I want. Or maybe what I actually want is for some things to be sort of extending my rack because I ran out of space or something. And so I can do that too. That's not an issue anymore. Everything sort of stays in place, which is great. But personally, I prefer it like this. But I realize that not everyone likes it that way. So this is a new way that you can do it. The thing that you'll find here is the mixer is new. And I'll just teleport pretty close so it's clear to see. So now we can sort of control up to 4 channels. This is the input. And we can control the volume. Alright. We can control the pan. And this video unfortunately is mono, so you won't be able to hear that. But you can also control the pan through control voltage. And I'm not sure if that's audible in a mono recording, probably not. And obviously you can also add more signals. And you can add them together, and that's nice. And you can control the master volume as well. So that's nice. So you can start like adding things together a little more. Let's disconnect that. We can delete the modules by pressing the bottom button and then releasing. Another thing that we have is a velocity tracker. And wouldn't you look at that? So this is a sort of module where you pick up this thingy. And basically it outputs control voltage corresponding to the velocity of this object in different directions. So you can see when I sort of move it to the left or to the right. So here we have right. Then we see, you know, X plus, that's like right in this object space, is being lit up. And the same for the other way. And when I move it up and down, same for that. And when I move it forwards and backwards, same goes for that. And I can just let go of it. And that's it. And you know what? I kind of like this, and it's a little bit pretty too. I can draw with it, and you see this stripe sort of depends on how fast I move it. So let's try to control something with this. So I'm just gonna boot up. Let's just do 4 oscillators here, just for fun. Right? So 1, 2. Whoop! I accidentally grabbed the wrong thing there. 3 and 4. And let's turn on the volume. Alright, and these are all the same pitch. Now let's take this thing. Yep, all good. Let's map like Y down, this way, down. Let's map that to the pitch of the first thing. And you see it only happens if I move it down. Up doesn't do anything. Okay, but if I then take up and map that to the next one, and maybe this is easier to hear if I detune them a little bit. And I can sort of control the impact of this by adjusting the strength dial here. I can turn it down. Okay, and I can also set like how reactive this output is supposed to be by setting the glide. So if I set the glide really low, you can hear it's pretty reactive, and if I set it higher, it goes for more the sort of broader strokes. And now I can map more dimensions. Let's say I map left and right. I map right to this one, and I map left to this one. And all of a sudden I can start sort of doing interesting things with modulation, just like that. And you know, one example could be, let's say I had, I remove this oscillator here and I grab this handle, and I have set up an amplifier, set that up here, alright, and I feed this into the amplifier, and I feed this into frequency modulation. Alright, that's what you'd expect. Alright, but what if I control the volume of this frequency modulator with Y down? I'm going to set the glide lower. That's kind of cool. Maybe I can even replicate it. I can do like another oscillator and another amplifier. And this is sort of part of the coolness of being digital, is I can just sort of, you know, bring in new modules when I need it. Okay, so this can now be frequency modulated too, and I'll do it for Y+. I'll control the volume of that. It's pretty cool. Alright, let's do one more naughty thing. Let's take another amplifier. What I want to do now is I want to feed this signal here. I'm going to feed that back into this amplifier and feed that all the way back into frequency modulation for this thing. And what's that going to do? Well, let's see. Gonna make things a little more interesting, you know? So, and let's now map, for example, X right to the strength of that signal. Let's adjust the strength. So I can start to do interesting things with just velocity and just kind of feeding things in an interesting way. Fun tool for sound design. So let's take all of these out again. Let's see, I don't want any of these right now. So the last thing I have to show you is a CV modifier called LAB-VEL, and this is a CV quantizer. So this will quantize control voltage into notes of different scales. And so what I will do is I will set up a simple oscillator here. Alright, all good. For this to work, and this is sort of something that needs to be improved, the CV amount needs to be all the way to the top. And now let's bring in, let's bring in that velocity tracker again. I'm going to put that there. Let's bring down, okay, Y-, that's down. Let's bring that into CV in here. See what happens. Okay. Not so interesting, but watch what happens when I lower the strength. And I can change the scale. Okay, so now we can sort of take control voltages like the ones that the velocity tracker produce, and we can sort of convert that into musical notes of different scales. So we can, for example, choose whole tone. There's all the dream, you know, or octaves. That's pretty cool, but it doesn't have to be a velocity tracker, that could be any signal. So let's take another oscillator, okay, and we're gonna adjust the frequency, so it's like a low frequency oscillator. And okay, so we're doing something. Let's do that to minor again. Okay. This is audio rate, of course. So it can also just become some sort of quantized frequency modulation. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's check out the final source that could kind of work for this. I'm going to take a clock and feed it into a sequencer. And let's just feed this value in. Set it back to minor. Okay, that works, but it's not so cool because it's like mapping up across all sort of 5 octaves, which is a little bit much. So what I can do is I could maybe take an amplifier and I could feed this through an amplifier first. Okay, so now I have a sequence going, right? And I can start to like extend that. I can add another amplifier. I can feed this through the amplifier. And I could, you know, all the usual stuff. I could take an envelope generator and I could feed the envelope in here, and I could feed the trigger from the sequencer in here. Okay. And you can start to build on that, right? And I can change the scale if I want to. A nice major scale. Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, whole tone. A little bit scary like that, actually. Of course, octaves are always an option. Or just chromatic. I like minor. Etc. And I can of course clear my session and be all done with it. So those are some of the updates to SynthVR. You could see the new modules. You could see the new ways of interacting with the modules. I think that has improved the experience quite a lot. And I can see that people are starting to have fun as well building things. And that's what we want. So now in terms of what's next for SynthVR, here's sort of I have this like high level roadmap board. And I've noted all the feature requests that people have come with. And I'm trying to sort of arrange this in such a way where the most important things get developed next, and then we sort of keep track of all these ideas for medium term, long term, whatever is possible to do. And what I'm working on right now is patch serialization. So having a way that you can build this patch and then save it. And right now you can save it as sort of a JSON file, and that works totally fine. And now I'm implementing the loading functionality. So taking a saved patch file and sort of recreating it in VR. And that seems like it's going to be pretty straightforward. Also patch autosave, so sort of like making your session persistent. So when you come into SynthVR, you start building, and then all of a sudden there's something else for you to do. You got to cook dinner or whatever. Then you can sort of, whenever you come back, this thing is still here and it's here for you to play with. So that's going to be made possible by serializing the patch. The other thing that I've been working on is a networking proof of concept. So that is looking into, well, how can people collaborate in SynthVR? And it is possible to have people together in the same space playing the modular, and I think it's a cool idea. But there are some concerns that I have about doing that. So for example, synchronizing the state of each individual module is actually quite hard. So say you have a sequencer. Well, the state that the sequencer is in is going to actually depend on when you plugged in the clock, for example. If you plugged the clock out at any point and plugged it back in. And this sort of state is really hard to synchronize between players. What you could do is you could synchronize like the player avatars and all of the actions that they take. So you can synchronize with, oh, well, my collaborator turned this button and he moved this module and he disconnected this. And that would work just fine. But there is a risk that like the modular as a whole sort of gets out of sync between the two players. So they're not listening to the same thing because the differences in state internally in each of the modules sort of end up compounding into something that will make it sound very different. So I'm not sure if that should be prioritized. Some people seem to want it, but I would like for you to chime in here and tell me, what do you think? Do you think this would be cool, even though the audio wouldn't necessarily be completely synchronized between you and your friend? Do you think this would be good to have, or would you actually realistically play by yourself most of the time, and this would be sort of an edge case? And if it is, then I will not prioritize it. I will work on other things. OpenVR support. I've been in touch with Valve, and if all goes well, I'll be able to have an index development kit, so I can start working more directly towards index support and OpenVR, SteamVR support. We'll have to see how that goes. There are some technical roadblocks to making it happen, but overall it seems pretty doable if I have the gear to actually prototype it at home. Finally, there's some updates to the audio engine, and these are still to be determined. There's a possible sort of technology collaboration thing that might happen. We'll have to see. We're going to prototype that first and see how it goes. But without saying too much, if that thing is possible, then that could be a very exciting step towards making SynthVR very extendable and make it such that users can make third-party modules really easily, maybe even more easily than anything else that's out there at the moment. So I'm really excited about that. We have loads of feature requests. People have asked for OpenVR, PSVR. PSVR is going to be low priority for now. But then a lot of great ideas like could you visualize the outputs of all the modules in some way? And could you have 3D sound sources? Could you adjust the rack height? Could you change the menu in a couple different ways? And I want to look into all of those as well. So they have been saved in this feature request column. And so if you have any sort of feedback or ideas, you find some bugs, whatever it is, come join on the Discord server. The link is going to be in the description. Come join the conversation. It's really helpful, and it's a fun place to be as well, to talk about VR and synthesizers. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. I hope you check out the new version of the alpha and let me know what you think. Have a great time. Until the next time I see you.